Sorry.
The other one. Thank you.
Alrighty. Everybody settled? Greetings, everybody. My name is Kevin Swanson. This is Andrew Weslinski, Captain Craig, and Lorna Porter, and we are representing the Sam Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. And the title of our presentation today is Zappos.com, the economies of wow, the scalability of service. As you already are aware that the main goal of Zappos.com is to offer extraordinary wow service to everyone that it touches. And the questions we asked were, are these product offerings efficient? So the purpose of our presentation is to go through the offerings of Zappos.com and decide whether or not they add value to the company. So first off, a little overview. Like I said before, Zappos.com is very service-oriented. They define themselves as a service company that just happened to sell shoes. This combined with their wow service has yielded them a very strong and loyal customer base and is the cornerstone of their culture. Another big strength that Zappos.com has is its response to change, its ability to adapt with the internet industry, namely in their supply chain, going from a drop ship model to holding all their inventory in-house, yielding 100% inventory accuracy, and having a state-of-the-art inventory system within their warehouse has also been one of their greatest advantages, and this ability to change will drive our initiatives into the future. The one problem that we've seen with Zappos.com is with scalability, or making economic decisions with the service offerings that they have. When analyzed, do they add value to the company? And to further illustrate what I mean with scalability, we here have the current situation, the vicious cycle of wow, we'd like to say. Vicious cycle illustrates how their kind of over customer service creates inefficiencies throughout its business. So the beginning of it is the wow service. They invest everything in that, and then that leads to being over accommodating to their business partners, which results in inefficiencies in their operations. They take pride in costly and labor-intensive customer service to their customers. But what completes this vicious cycle of wow is that Zappos invests back into the customer service as opposed to investing in efficiency. So going on with the structure of our presentation, our approach is to go through these operational offerings with the goal of scalability and efficiency in mind. And through our analysis, we found that we could increase Zappos profitability by 16% with our analysis. And to further elaborate on that, I'm going to hand it off to Andrew.
Thank you. So, as Kevin said earlier, Zappos.com is experiencing inefficiencies in their inbound logistics. And this is mainly due to the high congestion at the warehouse. Zappos serves 1,400 brands to their customers from multiple vendors from different locations, and this is increasing the high variation of lead time. And Zappos does give their vendors a delivery window of 4 to 14 days to ease this delivery process, but they're not being held accountable for this. And the warehouse runs 24 hours, 7 days a week, but that is only for the outbound shipments. And they only receive shipments for 5 days a week. And another problem that is inducing this high congestion is the lack of visibility in the manufacturer's supply chain. And that's requiring a high degree of uncertainty of when the shipments are going to actually arrive at the warehouse. And so we wanted to do a sensitivity analysis on how safety stock is going to reduce as we reduce our lead time variation. And we're going to do this by decreasing or increasing our receiving window and opening up the warehouse for 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, and holding our vendors accountable for missing those delivery windows. So our current lead time variation is 4 to 14 days, and if we implement these changes, we can reduce it to 4 to 10 days, or even down to 4 to 8 days. And if we reduce this lead time variation from 4 to 10 days, we're going to limit ourselves to stock out since our lead time is lowering, and it is going to lower our standard deviation of lead time demand from 3.16 to 1.97. It's going to have a direct effect on lowering our safety stock by 15%. Or if we even go further to lowering our lead time variation to 4 days, it'll have a direct effect, reducing our safety stock to 27%. And overall, it's going to lower our inventory holding costs 5 to 8% on average. And another problem they're having is in their outbound logistics, Zappos uses strictly UPS overnight, and they're guaranteeing 4 to 5 days. But they're still utilizing that overnight, which is very costly. UPS has told Zappos that they can deliver to 60% of their customers within 2 days and 80% within 3, and they're still guaranteeing that 4 to 5, so that customer is still going to have that surprise effect if they're using that ground shipment and it still shows up in 2 days. So if Zappos has an average or annual demand of they're right under 11 million units, they're going to have about 9 million outbound shipments, and 35% of that is going to come back as returns, and so that'll be 3.15 return shipments, totaling 12.15 million shipments at a cost of $100 million. And this puts us at an average shipment of $8.23. And if we can reduce that by 10% by utilizing UPS's ground shipping to those customers that we can reach in 1 day, our average shipment will lower to $7.41. It'll reduce our outbound transportation costs by 10% or $10 million. And to sum it up, what we would like to do for our inbound transportation is we want to extend our receiving hours, and we want to extend our extranet to have more visibility with our manufacturer supply chain, which will help us reduce our variation lead time, and then we will be able to hold our vendors accountable. And for our outbound, we would just like to use a more scalable, efficient option that UPS is offering us. And now I'm going to hand it off to Catherine, and she's going to talk about our scope.
Thanks, Andrew. The first thing I'm going to talk about today is the scope of product offerings, is the current U.S. market share. Zappos has been around for 10 years, and they have reached $1 billion in sales. However, their market share really only consists of 3% of the U.S. population. What this says to us is that there is a huge potential for growth here. This is a huge industry that they haven't even begun to tap the potential of. Another thing is that with the onset of the recession, consumers as a whole are becoming more price sensitive. They're becoming more cost conscious and looking to save money where they can, especially in consumer goods like shoes and apparel. And so one of the things that we have examined is Target.com and Walmart.com are growing in online sales. And so these are becoming competitors with Zappos. Zappos has been competing for the last 10 years on service. However, now as the economy and the economic environment are changing, they're going to need to begin to compete on price. One of the ways that we believe that we're going to be able to do this is by examining the non-value adding brands. This, again, is another issue that we have seen with Zappos. In 2008, they added electronics and some other non-apparel categories to their website. These products typically have about a 20% profit margin, whereas shoes and apparel are going to have 50% or well above that. These profit margins don't seem to add as much value as they possibly could, as much as shoes would, and they don't seem to fit the service model that Zappos has already presented to us. We examined the gross profit margin of Zappos, which is about 35%, and from this we calculated the purchasing multiplier, which is $2.86, or roughly $3. And what this tells us is that revenue must increase by $3 to have the same effect on profits as a $1 decrease in purchasing costs. So what we have done through examining Zappos.com and the brands that they offer is trying to identify about how many brands are these non-value adding brands. And we've come up with a rough estimate of about 200 of their 1,417 brands. So this is about 14% of their products, their brands, that we would eliminate, which would result in a 14% purchasing cost decrease. we came up, given the financial information from the case and our know-how, we came up with an estimated cost structure. And as you can see, purchasing costs have decreased not only in this first year, but 10 years out, the purchasing costs, the savings from the purchasing cost decrease persist moving forward. In order to calculate exactly what effect this would have on profit, we utilize the purchasing leverage effect to take the percent cost savings and identify the percent profit increase. And so we calculated the purchasing leverage effect to be 4%, and then using our cost structure that we've estimated, that comes to about $8 million added directly to the bottom line, an $8 million profit increase through these purchasing cost decrease. And Zappos in the past has reinvested all of their money into their WOW culture. And what we would suggest and recommend for this case is that they reinvest in a marketing campaign to try to enable them to compete better with the Target.com and the Walmart.com and low-cost providers that have everyday low prices that people are really looking for in these economic times. And so we suggest a marketing campaign that also makes use of 6pm.com, which is their channel for liquidating excess inventory that they offer at discounted rates, and that people who are very price conscious will want to go to first. So by marketing and getting Zappos' name out there, we believe that they'll be able to increase their total market share, but also increase their returns so that they're better than average and create a more sustainable business structure in terms of their product offerings. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lorna to talk about customer service.
All right, I'm going to address the last piece of our recommendation, which is customer service. As Kevin mentioned from the very beginning, customer service is one of the most important core competencies of Zappos.com. To begin, I'm going to start with the call center that they operate 24/7 with 400 employees. Within that call center, they also only have one metric to determine how the call center is being run and the efficiency of it. And that metric measures how long it takes for each call to be answered. The third piece is going to be organizational change opportunities in relation to the buyout by Amazon. So first, here on the left, we have a table that kind of shows the amount of time each employee is spending per call. The case stated that they're receiving about 5,000 calls per day, which is on average 15 calls per employee. 15 calls per employee for an 8-hour shift averages 32 minutes per call. And I know if you've ever called a customer service call center, that you're actually wowed when it takes less time, or it's a very quick and efficient call. So we believe spending 32 minutes is actually more time than they should be spending per call. By decreasing the number of minutes per call, we can realize some savings annually. And the first situation we have here is a little bit more extreme situation, which is a savings of 21% or $2.4 million annually. And then the second situation here is a savings of 14% or $1.6 million annually. On the right here, we have an example of a balanced scorecard that the call center can use to measure the efficiency of each call and each employee. On the bottom left corner, we have the customer satisfaction piece, which is what they're using now with the amount of time it takes to answer each call. But we believe it's important to address how costly each call is, how much revenue they're making per call, as well as time on hold and abandoned calls. And this will give us more visibility as to how the call center is being run. To kind of wrap it up, our goals for customer service are to create a staff that's the right amount of size for where Zappos is, and a staff that will be able to support them in the future, as well as implement some new metrics in the call center, as well as leverage some opportunities with Amazon. Amazon has been very successful and profitable as an online retailer, and we believe from that Zappos can look to them to improve their profitability as well. All right, so at this point you might be thinking we have recommended lots of changes and want to change what Zappos is. But at the end of the day, their core values is what makes Zappos who they are, and we do not want to impact that at all. We believe these core values are what makes them unique, and their employees passionate about the company, as well as the customers interested in what to buy from them. So when it comes down to it, we want to keep these the same, but improve some of the efficiencies around that. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin to wrap it up.
Thank you, Lorna. So I'm going to try to quickly wrap this up before we get out of time. But just to go over our recommendations, we're going to reduce purchasing costs by 14% by limiting the scope of our lower margin products. We're going to save in labor costs by 14% by making the call center more efficient. We're going to reduce inventory holding costs by eliminating the variance that we had on our inbound shipments and the congestion we received at the warehouse. And we're going to hopefully reduce transportation costs by 10% by utilizing the UPS ground shipment as opposed to the expensive overnight shipment. And according to our calculations, we estimate that it can increase profitability by 16%. And kind of more than just the numbers of profitability increase, it's also more important to set this company up for the future. And we've turned that vicious cycle we talked about in the beginning into a virtuous cycle, where in the vicious cycle, the customer service seemed to be impeding the logistical efficiency of the company. And with the virtuous cycle, we'd be able to complement that process. And that is able, so as Zappos grows, it'll be able to achieve economies of scale and be more efficient that way. And of course, we're not naive enough to think that all these initiatives can be taken place in a day or a year. So here's our implementation timeline, kind of the smaller things, more operational implementations, or things like our scope of product offerings. We can take down our inventory pretty quickly that way. We reduce the inventory window and hold vendors accountable. Those are more operational things we can take care of. The longer terms, things that are more 1 year to 2 years, or implementing that marketing campaign and start changing the brand identity and start getting the name of Zappos out there, and also implementing like an ERP system, or improving our extranet expansion to go all the way through to our manufacturers, so our variability of lead time decreases. And then lastly, the organizational culture, instead of being so focused on customer service and giving great wow service, also have wow service and wow logistical efficiency. And lastly, to wrap things up, the economies of wow, this is a scalable service for future. Like I said, I think the biggest takeaway from this presentation is if you follow through with these initiatives and combine customer service with being efficient in your business operation model, that'll be able to let Zappos grow very well. So at this time, we'd like to open up the floor to any questions, comments, anything that you'd like us to elaborate on. Note that there's all of our mathematical analysis in the back on those Excel spreadsheets if you want to reference that. So,
just a question on the transportation piece of it. You said you were going to reduce the delivery window and then also hold your vendors accountable. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the things you would do to hold them accountable?
I think after our research of Zappos.com, what they do, one of the first things we found was was it the vendor guide?
Yeah, the vendor merchandising guide.
And things like the holding vendors accountable. Maybe since we kind of had the big brother kind of aspect towards it, we said, oh, it's even quoted in the case that we like to be accommodating to our business partners. But I think demanding just something out of it in itself would be able to improve the transparency there, and also maybe leveraging our product brand a little bit as Zappos gets out there. People want to ship their stuff with Zappos, like Powered by Zappos. That offering online would also give us some leverage with that as well. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. This is for Lorna on the customer service part.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned there, you had your analysis there on how by reducing the call duration or the time of each call, that you could have some economies there and some efficiencies. Do you personally feel like that would affect, though, the core values that you had up there? I mean, for example, I think what you're going to see there is the person on the phone, you're the rep, the talent sales rep, or whatever you're going to call yourself, and I'm talking to you, and I get this feeling that you're trying to get me off the phone. And that's not the core value that I see. Did you have any feeling for that?
Yes, sir. We believe that even at the proposed amount of times of 24 minutes and 27 minutes, that still leaves them a large window of time. And if they want to spend an hour, that's great. There'll be other employees there to pick that up because obviously not all calls are going to last that long. And when we're talking about employee reductions, we believe that the core values are right there at the center. And that's not about the number of employees, but that's about their passion for the company and passion for the values. And still believing in those values. So we believe that we still allow plenty of time for all the calls necessary. And we don't want to rush anyone, but to kind of maximize that usage and make every
Just a
employee.
quick follow-up question, and this is just more of a curiosity. Did you happen to make a call there as research?
Actually,
Oh,
We did.
How did it go?
It was interesting. They actually have a call menu, like when you first call in, press 1 and kind of talk to someone about this. But the 5th option was press 5 for the joke of the day. So of course we pressed 5 for the joke of the day. Of course we wanted to know.
Was it a good joke?
No.
Oh, no. Okay, so you know how Zappos says, like, we want to be creative, fun, and a little weird. It was weird. It was just weird. So, yeah. So
All
we
right,
did
that was curious, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Lady, always an advantage to be the woman, right? One of the biggest challenges in acquisitions oftentimes are integrating cultures. Can you speak to maybe the similarities and the differences of cultures of Amazon and Zappos, and where are going to be the biggest challenges?
I feel like, well, in our research, when Amazon did acquire Zappos.com, their CEO didn't even visit the headquarters for 6 months in Vegas. So as far as their culture and integrating, I feel like that's going to be their big brother, and they have so many extra resources, and Amazon.com is the #1 online retailer. And just integrating that culture, I think they're going to keep Zappos.com like more on the side. And they did eliminate those product offerings that Zappos did have, like the electronics and stuff that didn't have those margins that Amazon's very good at. So I think like working together like that and working their culture together and not like interfering with their product offerings and actually being competitors of each other.
I've got a thing to add to that, if you don't mind, Andrew. And I think the biggest obstacle is integrating that culture. But the way I look at it is, Zappos has a lot more to gain from Amazon than Amazon has to gain from Zappos. Since Amazon's been there as the biggest online retailer, but Zappos kind of has this niche with the weirdness and the customer service. If Amazon tried to apply all that to the scope of operations they have, that'd be impossible. But if Zappos kind of carried on the efficiencies Amazon has and the wide distribution network, then they'd be able to gain a lot more than Amazon would with them. So,
and looking at your reduction of product offering, I get it. You're looking to improve your margin equation, right? What was the biggest argument against that? Against reducing your offer from a top line risk perspective?
From a top line risk perspective. I think for us, because we're from Northwest Arkansas, so we know Walmart, and so we know what SKU rationalization does. And we know that Walmart did not have great success with SKU rationalization, and it in fact hurt them. And so that's why we, keeping in mind that Zappos was now being owned by Amazon, and Amazon was kind of taking that care of that portion of the market, the electronics, it just doesn't make sense for Zappos to offer competing brands. And it also,
well, another thing is like when the recession goes, when one of the biggest part of Zappos product is you buy 3 pairs of shoes, you try them on, you get that in free returns. So when you're buying a GPS, you're going to buy 3 GPSs and see which one has the coolest voice telling you directions, and then you send the other 2 back. No, I mean, so that's a niche Zappos has, that selling the electronics and different types of product categories that doesn't give them that kind of advantage.
and it's not cost effective
Yeah.
with their
Most
service
important.
model. With the free returns, it's
Yeah.
just simply not cost effective.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. One, which you can answer second, did you watch the YouTube video of the staff at the customer service center?
think he's
We've
on
seen
online.
I'm shopping for a watch.
This is on their website, so.
Oh,
okay.
We did watch the YouTube video of their warehouse and how the robots go with the.
Well, this is more about, to your point about customer service, this is a 5-minute video about how they provide their fund and so on. But more appropriate, the question I have is, how did you reconcile the cost savings overall when you're going from 1 shift to 3 shifts or a 24/7 operation? I mean, I know warehouse workers don't get that much money, but still, it's a
Right, well, we
tripling
figured-
of your cost.
That most of the workers are well-rounded, and I put them in like a rotational schedule, so they're not always inbound, and that's not all they do. And so they're changing it up, and they're not getting bored with their job. And on those low times, have them go over working the outbound and fulfill those outbound deliveries quicker than they said 4 hours, why can't you get them out? Like,
But you're still dealing with 24 hours or 3 shifts, because you can't work them 24 hours.
That is understandable, but I think our biggest advantage right there is our automated warehouse system. They pretty much have robots that do, you stand there, the robots come, and you just load and unload right there, and it's really, really magnificent when you do that. So they're already doing outbound orders over the weekends, so we just figured, why not allow inbound orders? So at the same time, we're trying to hold our customers accountable, but at the same time, we're trying to open up that window to make it easier for them to bring in inbound shipments.
Did you consider anything to improve or reduce the number of returns or look at efficiencies on return logistics flow?
The only really thing, it was 35%, and we figured there's really no way to actually reduce that. Like when customers are going to buy shoes, they don't like them, they're going to return them.
Or
Other
if
than
they
that,
don't fit.
so
We figured that was one of the things that made
that's
Zappos
what they're going to have to take. And on average, like they do make a gross profit margin of 35%, and in a brick and mortar store, they're making anywhere from like 45 to 50%, and that's most likely because they're returning that 35% of their sales and losing possibly, it was like last year about $400 or $500 million actual record profit that they don't have.
We have 2 minutes.
So, your transportation spreadsheet, and this is not a critique, it's really just curiosity. What is a unit? How did we ship 1.2
That was just
shoes?
more of an average. We got the 10 million units by just doing our turns, which is their cost of goods sold, divided by our inventory that we had on hand. And so we just divided that by like the.
Maybe a pair of shoes?
Yeah.
That's an average.
Question was gonna be that.
Baby shoes.
But it was just more of like an average,
Yeah.
just that like sensitivity is really what it was.
Okay.
Was it 0.2 shoes?
Can you, on the transportation side, you talked about outbound shipping options and how they will be better utilized. Can you expand on that more?
It said that from where they're located in Kentucky, UPS can reach 11% of their customers in 1 day, and if they're paying that overnight to get it to that customer in 1 day, why can't they just have like, put a computer system or something in like that and pay that ground shipping rate that averages probably about $5 or $6 instead of going like $15 or $20.
Was that their only DC? I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
It was.
it's their own.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, appreciate it.